Okay, I've gone live. Hopefully, you'll be able to hear me. So, when everybody comes in, let me know that you're here and you can hear me okay. And we're going to start making some jelly roll rugs. It says I'm live. That's good. It's hopefully the camera and the microphone are working this evening. Oh, somebody else came in. That's good. So when you see me, it's, oh, Lynn's here. Hi, Lynn. I saw you this time. Awesome. Lisa. Hi, Lisa. Cool. Everything's okay? Yeah, my camera's pretty good. I like it. Oh, here comes Pam. Hi, Pam. Hi, Lisa. Is Maria with you too? We'll wait a few minutes for people to get here. Oh my gosh, we got all kinds of people. So yeah, so when you get in, let me know that you're here so I know you can hear me and see me okay. Looks like we're getting people. Oh, we got 7. Yeah, I like my microphone. I got a it's just a Logitech webcam, but it's a pretty nice one and it's autofocus, so it works pretty well for this. I've been using the same one at the store for like the classes and stuff, so it works pretty well. Okay, so when you get in, make sure you say something in the comments so I know you can hear me okay. Got a few people here that haven't said anything yet. Hi, everybody. Did you receive the notification in your notifications when I went live? Hopefully, oh, we got 10. My goodness, we got all kinds of people. Yep, say something, everybody, when you get in so I know you can hear me okay. I'm going to scroll down and see if I'm missing. Oh, I'm missing some. So there's Deb and Denise. Oh, there's Maria. Hi. Oh, there's Judy. You can see me. Sorry, my comments don't scroll up. So if I don't say something right away, let me know. I can hear fine. Good, good. Maria can hear. Lisa's here. Hi, Deb. Okay, just, oh, Janet Vest. Hi, Janet. Let's see. Oh, and Lynn, you're doing the bracelets. Cool. Those little slap bracelets. Those are fun. Yeah, my comments don't scroll up too well, so. First alert forecast has been updated. Sorry, I didn't turn off my phone. It just talked to me. Donna's here. Clara's here. Hi, Clara. And you received the notice. Okay. Hopefully, you should receive a notice like in your notifications. It looks like the little bell at the top of the Facebook page. So that's where you should tell you that I've gone live. So hopefully, it defaults as you getting those notifications, so you should get them. Machine's running and I can't hear. Oh, well, I can understand that. I usually have a machine running too. So, okay. So have I said hello to everybody? All right, I think I've got, so the comments, just so you know, if I'm talking along and you don't hear, and if you have a question and you don't hear from me, if you would message me through Messenger instead, it'll come right to me, and I've got my phone laying right here, and it'll come through on my phone, so I'll be able to see it. Sometimes things don't scroll very well on this screen, and I'm going to be looking away from the computer, so I'll try to look over. But I have to go to the other side to the machine, and I can't get my computer over here too. It's not big enough for all my stuff. So we'll see how this works today. I may have to alter something next time for this. So we'll see how it works. I haven't done this before, so you'll have to bear with me. Okay. So is everybody ready to make their jelly roll rugs? I really like making these. They're very fun. And some of you have made them, I think, before, and some of you haven't. Oh, it looks like Orlin got here. Orlin or Kathy, one or the other. Oops, I lost somebody. Let's see if my scroll is going here. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. It's a little after 6, and this will be up in the group then, so if you've missed class, you can sure go back and watch the video later. So I'm going to start by talking a little bit about, I'm sorry, I look like I'm looking to the side, but I can't get the camera and the laptop at the same place, so I'll try to look more at the camera. We're going to start a little bit about the stuff that we need to make the rug, and also we're going to talk a little bit about needles and thread and stuff like that. So this is the pattern. Some of you already had it, and I sent some of the patterns to people. This is the Jelly Roll rug, and it's RJ Designs. And if you still need a pattern, I have them. This gal's actually done a couple of other patterns. Second here, I've got them sitting here. She has one called the Jelly Roll rug too, and this is the rectangular one, and this one's really fun to do too because you don't have to do the rolling part. This one's just straight. So I have those too, so if you're interested in that pattern, I have those. They're like 10 bucks. Okay, so I have that. So we're going to be using this pattern tonight. She also has a new pattern called the Colossal Jelly Roll rug, and it's like you use 2 jelly rolls. It's huge. It's round. I haven't decided if I like the way she starts it yet, though. I haven't made one. She starts it by the same way, but then she takes like a gathering stitch along the middle to make it rounder, and I would think that'd be hard to get it started. So I'm going to play with that. I've actually made a round rug and just made a shorter center. So I don't know that you need to do the gathering. I think you can just do a shorter center. It's not perfectly round, but it's very close. So the one I did is very close to being completely round. So, okay, so we're going to use this one tonight, the original Jelly Roll rug. I'm going to lay this over here because I'll need some stuff on it when we're talking over on the other side here. Okay, now I want to talk about the needles. What in the pattern, for those of you who have seen the pattern closely, it talks about using, holy cow, size 14 to 18, which is like a log, jeans needles. You know, cotton batting and the cotton fabric, you don't need to use that big of needles. You really don't. Oh, Connie made it. Hi, Jane. Hi, Connie. You don't need to use that large a needle. Personally, my favorite needles to use are my number 11 embroidery needles, sometimes my number 14, but I usually use 11s, believe it or not. And then I also really like these Microtex, and these are number 12s. I don't know if you can see the number on there very well. This is 8012s. And then I also use 9014s also. I have a tendency to use my embroidery needles a lot, but I do really like the Microtex. Microtex needles have a very sharp tip on them. So when you're going through the fabric, it goes through those layers really well because the tip is very sharp. So honestly, my favorite ones were my embroidery needles number 11s and my Microtex number 12s. The only thing that I've found as I've been doing these, depending on the fabric you're using, you often need a different needle and thread combination. And it just depends on the fabric. Like I did one that was a batik quilt or a batik rug, and it did not like the cotton thread. And I needed a smaller needle, and I needed to use polyester thread because it was skipping stitches when I went to put the rug together. We'll talk a little bit about that next time too, but sometimes it's nice to have a variety of needles available in case you're having problems with the sewing. You might need to change your needle or change your thread or both. So that's what I've been doing. For the most part, I have been using cotton thread. I like these larger spools of thread because it does take a lot of thread when you're doing that zigzagging. So you'll go through a lot of thread to do these. And these are about 12 or 1500 yards. Let's see what this one is. 1200 yards. And so one regular size rug, you'll take nearly the whole spool to do this. Now it says cotton threads. Many of you will use Aurifil. Aurifil is not my favorite cotton thread. I actually prefer this. I like this new thread. It's Pima cotton, and I get it from Craftsy. They have it, well, it's now called Blueprint, I believe. But I got a couple of sets of this, and it's really nice thread. It was quite reasonable. It comes in this nice plastic box. I got a couple colored sets, and it's called Pima cotton. I really like it. And then I discovered that Hobby Lobby has Pima cotton thread now in their Sewology, you know, the regular, but it's on these big spools like this. And it is called Sewology, and it's also Pima cotton. So I like this too because it's got a little more body to it than the Aurifil, and it doesn't kink up on me as much. I had a little trouble with the Aurifil unthreading a lot, so I've been using this, and I like it really well. But whatever works for you. Be aware that you might also need to use polyester. Like I couldn't get the cotton thread to work on the batik fabric. It really didn't like it. So I used a polyester Mettler, is usually what I use, Mettler polyester. And that was also a smaller needle. So we'll talk a little bit about that next time when we get ready to zigzag, because that's when I notice it. It's not so much when I'm using the straight stitching. So just be aware that you might need a different color thread for your zigzagging. If you do something with your straight stitching, it may not like to zigzag. So just have a couple of threads available that are basically the same color that you might need to do some changing. So, okay. So we've talked a little bit about needles. And like I said, I don't use those big needles, and I'm not a big jeans needle fan. They have an odd eye on them. And some of the machines don't like to thread them. So I just have never liked those. And I don't like the big needles because unless they are sharp, it's like trying to put a log through your rug. So the smaller ones, actually, I don't break them. I mean, 11s or 12s, 14s, I mean, any of those should work. But just use something that's sharp. I always kind of put new needles in when I start these just because then they're good and sharp. Needles are cheap, so, you know, put them in and change them often. So. Okay, so there's needles, thread. We talked a little bit about the cotton thread. I'm going to use the Pima today. I've got white in mine because my tube had a lot of white in it, so I'm going to use white thread. And then we talked about the patterns. Oh, and then there was this free pattern. I'm going to put this, I wanted to tell everybody about it. I found a free pattern. I don't know if you can see this or not. It doesn't look like much here, from Shabby Fabrics. And it's a jelly roll rug that you make like the rectangle one, but it's a wedge. So what they've done is just taken it, made a, like basically the rectangle one, and then made a wedge pattern like you would put in front of your sink, and it's oval. So it's really cool. So I'm going to try one of these. I thought it was kind of neat. So this is the pattern. I went and got it from shabbyfabrics.com, and it's a free pattern. So I got that. So I thought that'd be a fun one to try. Okay, talked a little bit about the patterns. Then the other thing that I use when I make these are these little clover clips, you know, these little quilter's clips. What do they call them? Wonder clips. There we go, wonder clips. And these work really well for holding the fabric together and the batting. So when you go to fold it, it works really well. And I usually use about 10. I get tired of clipping. Some people like to clip the entire roll. I've had somebody come to class when I've taught this class with the entire roll clipped. I don't like to clip that well, so I do about 10 at a time, and then I sew, and then I stop, and then I clip another 10, and then I keep going. So I'll show you that as I get over here to the machine. But these work great, and I hardly ever use pins anymore because I've discovered these little clips, and they're easy, and then they don't poke you in the finger. So I have a tendency to bleed all over everything if I use pins, so I do really like this. Okay, so those are the little things that I'm using over here at the machine. And then I'm also going to show you one other thing when we get ready to start the long tube. So that's what we're going to do this week, is do the really long tube. It takes a while. I'm not going to lie to you. It does take a while to sew that. It's about, well, it's over 1,600 inches. I think it figured out to be close to 1,800 inches. So, you know, it's going to take a while to sew it. You're going to use a straight stitch. And so if you give me a minute, I'm going to lower this camera and take it over to my sewing machine. Give me just a second here. I have to move my feet. And I'm going to make this a little lower. It's easier to see me if I raise it up. So, okay. So we're going to put the camera back over here. Hopefully I'm not making you sick. All right. We're going to look at our sewing machine panels here. A lot of you have Brothers. And I'm just going to show you the stitch I use. I personally, if you have this on your machine, I really like to use the stitch, the straight stitch in the center. And then I like to use the one with the little polka dot. The newer machines have 2 buttons for reverse on them. So if I go over here quickly, you'll see what I mean. Okay, on this machine, this is the Luminaire. The Dream machines have this. So a lot of you have some of these newer machines. This button ties a knot in place if you press it instead of backing up like a physical, tack stitch. Then this one backs up. All right. Now, if you have one of the older machines, and some of you do, and some of you may not know this, there are 2 stitches on the machine. And I apologize, you may not be able to see this too well, but I can give you the numbers. They're pretty much the same on all the machines. There's a straight stitch in the center, number 103, that has 2 little lines at the top. And the 2 little lines, if you have that chosen and you push the button that backs up on the older machines, it will go backwards, physically go backwards. If you have the number 104 chosen, it has a polka dot at the top. And that means if you press that backup button, if you only have the one button, it will tie a knot in place. So for this whole rug, I would tell you to use the tying the knot in place, because then you won't see, like, there's going to be times when you need to like break your thread and like get up and maybe move or like iron your rug, or you might run out of thread. And if you use the backup, like if you physically back up, you could see the where you've left off and started again. And sometimes it's quite noticeable, especially if your fabric is lighter and you chose a darker thread. So I like to use the one that's the polka dot, that I can just tie a knot wherever I'm stopping. I can tie a knot in place, and then it doesn't show where I'm starting and stopping. So hopefully that makes sense, and I'll show you when I start sewing again too. So for those of you with the Brother Baby Lock machines that have the 2 buttons like this one does, I don't have to be so specific. I'll show you my 2 buttons here, these 2 buttons. I don't have to be so specific which stitch I choose, because anytime I press this button, it will just tie a knot in place. And anytime I touch this button, it will go backwards automatically, no matter what stitch I have chosen. Okay, so the people with the older machines have to choose those 2. And I like the polka dot. That way I can just tie a knot. All right, so hopefully that was as clear as mud. Does anybody have questions on that? Okay, so that's kind of some of the stitches. I'm trying to watch on the computer to see if anybody has any questions. You guys doing okay? Yep, nobody had any questions. I haven't seen any yet. All right, so we've got our stitch chosen. Most of the machines are going to be either 3 or 4. And I'm going to choose 4 because that's the one with the polka dot. Then I'm going to go down here, and since we're going through quite a few layers of fabric, I am going to lengthen my stitch length to 3.0 millimeters instead of at 2.5. 2.5 is pretty short for this many layers, because you're going to be going through, several layers of batting and a couple layers of fabric. So I do use a 3 for the length, and then just use a standard straight stitch. Okay, so there's our machine. And then the first thing you have to decide is which end of your rug you want on the outside, because we're actually going to start on the outside of the rug. with this tube. So what we're going to do first is actually going to be on the outside. So generally I want a darker color on the outside than I want on the inside of my rug. So I try to start with something darker on the outside, but it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't matter. But this particular jelly roll that I'm using, so if you can see my jelly roll, this is my jelly roll, and it had a lot of gold. It had lots of colors in it, and it's kind of a modern, it almost looks like a 30s print in a way, but it's kind of a modern 30s print. So I wanted this darker color on the outside. The other end is a very light peach, and I thought that might be a little light for the outside edge of the rug. So I'm going to put that in the center, and this will be on the outside edge. So choose the end of your roll, which one you would like in the center. Okay, now what I'm going to back this camera up and I'm going to point this down. Donna and Denise put a real nice video up on the site about how they were manipulating their roll of fabric, because Donna, I think, is doing a double one, and it's very, very, oh, sorry, it's kind of trying to focus on my legs. So but down here on the floor I have my roll of batting. And this is one of the rolls that I've cut. So here's my roll of batting. And then my roll, what I did in the instructions, it tells you to fan fold your fabric. Honestly, I find that it works better for me if I just roll it up. So I take a toilet paper roll and roll it up around that, and so it's on a roll, and then it doesn't kink up on me so bad. So this is my roll of fabric right here. Now I don't do this very neatly. I kind of lay my roll of batting, as you can see, on the floor, and my roll of fabric on the floor next to me. Donna and Denise had the cool little bucket that I recommended. You know, you saw my bucket. Here's the little bucket. Get these at the dollar store with the handles. They had a dowel through here and had their roll down in the bucket. So get a couple of buckets. If you put a dowel through here, then they'll spin a little easier and they won't get kinked up. Because sometimes what happens is your batting and your fabric want to kink up on you as you're sewing. So that would work really well. So that was a great video. Thanks, Don and Denise, for doing that. And but it depends on whatever works for you. You know, I've done, like my friend Kathy in Orland. Orland made me a cool little wood stand that has 2 pegs on it, and it holds each roll. I don't have room for it tonight, so that's why I don't have it out here, but I've been using that, and that's really neat. Sorry that my camera's doing that. I'm going to bring it up so it'll stop doing that. I think it's because it's so far away. And then he also made me a batting roller, and that's how I actually rolled my fabric up, is I rolled it up on my batting roller so that I could lay it down in a roll. Okay, so there's, oh, I think I have a question, so I'm going to try to get to the camera here, sorry. All right, so whatever works for you. I usually will lay my roll of fabric and my roll of batting on the floor, or I will lay it on the table next to me if I have room. And it's the rolled up seems to work better than just a pile or in a bucket or whatever. I mean, but whatever works for you. I've had people do it all different ways. This is what seems to be working the best for me. I lay it on the floor on my right, rolled up, keeps it from kinking. And then on the left of me, I lay my bucket. And then as I'm sewing that long tube, I bring the tube down and I coil it down into my little bucket, and it keeps it clean and neat, and it doesn't get like all over the place. However, the pattern recommends that you roll it in a ball, like you would a ball of yarn. Jan never really could do that. My mother tried to teach me to do that, and it just was a total failure. So this part right here became the blue bucket. It just did not work for me. So, but if you would like to do this, some of my students did. They rolled it all up in a beautiful ball and put it in the bucket. Whatever works for you. So there's a lot of ways to do this, and I just seems like the 2 rolls on the floor work the best for me. So okay. All right, so now we kind of know where we're going with. We got our stuff rolled up here. We got our batting down here. And now, on the second page of the pattern, it talks about how to start the middle edge. And we're talking about this part of the pattern right here. This is the second page. And what you got to do is you got to get a little bevel. Because on the outside edge of the rug, we want it to taper off on the outside edge, not be blunt. Because some of the rugs that I've seen people make, they don't do that on the outside edge, and then it's very blunt. And then you can definitely see where the coil stops. So we want that to be nice and beveled so that it will look beautiful on the edge. So when you start your rug, you are going to start, remember, this is going to be the outside edge. This is where the bevel is going to be. That's the outside. So what I'm going to do is I've got my batting. I'll hold this here, and then I'm going to move the camera again. I've got my batting on the wrong side of my fabric, like this, and then I'm going to fold my fabric in half with the raw edges together, like this. All right, so then I'm going to move over here. I'm going to move the camera again. Sorry, you'll have to forgive me. Put up with the moving of the camera here. Hopefully you'll be able to see. I'll tip it down a little bit. There we go. Okay, so we're going to lay this on the cutting mat. And I tried to put my cutting mat over here where you'd be able to see. Flip my blade open here so I don't. All right. So we're going to fold this in half. And so then we got, you know, roughly a 1 1/4 inch piece here. I'm going to tip this down just a little bit more. Hopefully you can see. All right. Then what I'm going to do, I just heard my phone. I want to make sure it wasn't a. Oh, okay. All right. We need to make this bevel so that when we have to cut a little bit off on this. So what we're going to do is I want to start a 1/2 inch from the folded edge. The folded edge is over here, and then this is the raw edge over here. And then I want to cut back about 6 inches. So it's going to be about a 1/2 inch on the edge up to about 6 inches. So I just take my ruler. I always have to find the 6 inches here. Okay. I'm going to go out to 6 inches, and I'm going to come up about a 1/2 inch. So my 6 inches from here to here, I'm going to cut off. So we're going to have, when I open this up, it's going to be a V with a real skinny point, okay? So I've got it about 1/2 inch, and I'm out about 6 inches here. I'm going to take my rotary cutter, and I'm just going to cut. I'm kind of cutting the wrong direction, but then you can see it. I'm going to have to stand up, sorry. This isn't the best mat that I have here. Okay. So I'm going to cut like that, and then I'm going to open this up. So I have now kind of a V shape like this. And I've got it, and it tapers down, and then it's going to be a full width of the jelly roll strip, you know, up about 6 inches. Okay. So then I'm going to pull the batting back, and I'm going to cut off about a 1/2 inch of batting, roughly. It doesn't have to be perfectly a 1/2 inch. I'm going to cut it off, a little tip. So then when I go to put this together and clip it, I can roll that nice piece of fabric over the batting, so I'm not going to have any raw batting showing anywhere. All right. So this is how you're going to do this entire tube. I'm just checking to see if there's any questions. You guys doing okay out there? All right. So we've got our V shape for the center. Or remember this, I'm sorry, the outside. This is going to be our outside edge. So what I do to get these started is I fold this in half, and I'm going to start up here on the, I'm going to pull this down just a little bit more so you can see me. I like to start up here a little back a little ways, so I'm on the full width of the jelly roll strip. Then I'm going to fold in to the center on both sides like this, sort of like making bias tape. And I'm going to fold the centers together, and then I'm going to clip this. I'm on the full width of the jelly roll strip. Then I'm going to go down to the end. I like to start up here, and then I go down to the end. And I'm going to do the same thing on the tip. Now the tip is very thin. Hopefully you'll be able to see me. I'm trying to keep my hand out of the way. Put the centers together. Now I've only got about an inch here at the bottom. And then I'm going to roll this in. I've got the end flipped over first. Then I'm going to take my two ends to the center, and I'm going to fold it in half. And it's pretty thin at the tip. And then I'm going to put a clip right on the very end. Like that. So I got a clip on their very end. Then I'm going to work my way down the sides here. So I'm going to do the same thing. So as I get a little wider, it makes it easier. So I'm going to clip this. Whoops. Clip these together. There we go. This end is a little bit hard to do because it's very thin. So here's my another one. I'm going to go down here. Put another one in. I need one more yet. So I put a little more clipping. I do a little more clipping in this little beginning section because I want to make sure that my fabric stays together well. Now the trick is we want to make sure that when we go to sew this that we're catching those raw edges. We don't want any of those raw edges to show when we get this done. So we want to make sure that everything's tucked in there real tight. I kind of stick my finger down through the center there. Make sure it's all tucked in there real tight so that it doesn't show. All right, I'm going to put one more clip up at the top here where it's a little thicker. Hopefully you can see me. I wish I had a cameraman. It'd be a lot easier if I had someone else to run the camera for me too. I don't think the cats could learn to do that though. All right. So there's the beginning. So remember, this is where we're going to start with, but this is actually going to be the outside edge. So see, I've got a clip on the end. It's real skinny there. And I got a few clips up. And I'm just going to start with this right now, and then I'll do some more clipping so you can see. Okay? All right, I'm going to make sure there's no questions. Are you guys doing okay with this? You understand what I did? The pattern shows this pretty well in the pattern. They actually tell you to pin, I think, in the pattern. But I've always found these Wonder Clips to work better. But this was one thing that I found as I was working on these. Okay, I'm going to move over here to the machine so you can see. They tell you to start sewing. I need to move my camera over a little more. They tell you to start sewing on the end. Well, there's only one problem. If you do that, the feed dogs are not on the fabric at all, and then all it does is make a big mess and a knot. So I actually found that that doesn't work very well. So what I do is I start up to where the full width of the fabric is. I kind of turn it upside down, and here's the other end down here. And I start on the fabric that's full width so I can really get a good grip on that. And then I work down the other direction. So what we're going to do is I'm going to get that all folded in there real nice. And I go down. I'm going to put my foot down on here. And I basically run down. I'm at the full width of the strip here. I basically run down this strip down the middle. I like it. It should look like you have two tubes here. A lot of the people are making theirs and they're doing these top stitching really close to the edge over here, and it does make them poofy, which is kind of pretty, but it also makes it real hard when you go to zigzag them together, because I found a lot of people are having problems with their zigzag skipping. It's because they're going through so much fabric and thread and everything else on the edge. So keep your stitch that's going to hold this together roughly down the center. With the J-foot on your machines, most of you have Brother and Baby Lock machines, just run right down the center and you kind of put the strip, it's basically even on your foot. So it makes it really easy. This strip where I'm starting right now and going down to that really skinny tip, I am going to kind of veer off to the right on that open edge because it is so thin. I need to do that in order to secure all that fabric. So hopefully I can do this with the camera here. So I'm going to take my needle down into my fabric, and actually I'm going to turn my pivot off, and I'm going to tie a knot right where I started. And you notice it's not going backwards, it's going up and down. And then I'm going to start sewing this right down the middle. If I can get my foot controller, there we go. All right, so I'm going to start sewing down the middle. Got it all lined up. I try to keep it very lined up, like this. Okay. I'm still kind of going down the middle, but as I'm getting thinner, I'm kind of starting to veer off to the right a little bit because otherwise I'm going to miss some of that fabric. I kind of use my finger to keep this pushed in there and keep it all lined up. I want my edges to be nice and even, and I'm still kind of veering off to the right. Getting down here to this little teeny tiny end, and I'm still kind of veering off, and I'm fairly close to the edge now, but I want to catch the fabric. So this is the only piece of this whole strip that I want to stay out to the outside edge. And I'm having trouble getting this one to line up for me. I'm going to cut for a second and then line it back up before I finish it. I always have trouble with the tip. It's very skinny. So sometimes I have to start sewing again to get it to line up for me. Let's put that little clip back on the end. Okay, tie a knot again. Now you see why I don't like to back up, because see, you would see that, and I don't think you're going to be able to see it when I just tie a knot. Okay, so we're kind of way out to the very edge right now, and I'm going to have to take this little clip off. And it's about 1/8 of an inch from the edge right now. Okay. Now when I get to the tip, I usually tie a knot because I don't have very much luck backing up, because right now that little tip is not even on a feed dog, hardly. Okay, and then I'm going to cut. All right, so there's my little tip. So see how nice and gradual that came out? And there's a little skinny tip on this end, and then it's the full width up here. So I started at the full width and I moved down towards the little tip. Okay, it looks like I got some questions, so just a second. Oh, yeah, Lynn, you probably could. You use Steam Seam 2 for everything. Yeah, you probably could. It might be a little hard with the bulk of the batting. I'm not sure how well it'll hold for that, but I think you could. It actually works real well with the little clip right on the end, so you don't have to put anything else on it, but that's up to you. If that works for you, whichever works for you to keep it. But you can see how I started like in the middle of the tube, and I got closer and closer to the edge as I went down. I don't know if you can see you can probably see the divot of the stitching. See how close I am? And that works really slick to do that, and then it holds really well. Okay? I think I might have one more question. Basically just for the tip, so you don't have to, yeah, that would be true. Just even if you could just, or a little glue stick might work too. You could take a little glue stick on the end of that where you flip it over the batting, and then put a little glue stick in there too. That might work too. So whichever works for you. I've usually done pretty good. I had a little trouble with this one. It was kind of ravelly on the end. All right, so now since I've got that end, that is this. Remember, this will be our outside actually. Since I've got that done, the rest of it is easy sailing. So it just takes a while because there's a lot of tube here. So we're going to turn this back over. So here's the start. Here's where the whole size of the tube is. And then I'm going to clip there just to keep it together. And then, let me put this down so you can see my hands a little bit better. I'm going to line this up with the batting, and I'm going to fold to the center and fold it in half again. So it's sort of like making bias tape. You put the two raw edges into the center, and then you roll it over. and then I'm going to clip. So I put about 10 clips on. It's a little hard when you have a camera here. The camera's kind of in the middle of my tube here, sorry. My hands are so dry, they catch on the batting really bad. All right, I'm going to put this here and flip it over. Like I said, I do about 10. I have 10 clips laying out here. I don't like to clip very well, just like I don't like to pin, so I just clip about 10, then I get bored of it, and then I sew. Some people, some of my students, have just been holding the fabric. You can just fold and hold. I did my first one that way, and this actually worked a little better for me with the clips because I was having a hard time. And then my hands hurt because you know there's a lot of sewing here. So I found that the clips worked really well for me. Do a little clipping. Sorry, you may also see some cat hair on my batting because, of course, they've been in here helping me today. So is it still all snowing where everybody is? It's been snowing here all day long. Oops, sorry about the cat hair. Mitzi was sleeping on my batting, I think. All right, so I'll put one more clip in here if I can get my hands to get a hold of the batting. There we go. All right, and then I'm going to go back up where we started, since we've got this flipped over. Now I like to keep the open side on the inside of the machine, so it's on the right. So that seems to work the best for me. I can control it better that way. With a camera between my legs, I'm not sure, but we'll see. I'm going to move the camera over a little bit more. All right, so we're ready to start sewing again. I'm going to put my needle down where I left off. Gonna tie it off, and then I'm going to take a clip off, and I sew pretty fast. I'll try not to sew too fast. I try to keep my edges very even, and I'm kind of driving right down the middle of the strip. Once you get a groove on going, this it goes along pretty fast, but you know it is a long tube, so it takes me usually takes me about 4 to 5 hours to sew this together. So you don't have to do it all at the same time, of course. It does take a while, but it's fun. It's very relaxing. You can kind of watch TV and do this. It's not, you know, it's not hard. It's just straight stitching. But I do try to keep my edges really even. Do a little more sewing so you can see. I think I might have a question over here. I can see something. Denise, hi Jan. I'm late to the party. I was baking. Okay. And Deb says, yes, it is. Yes, it is what? Deb, I'm not sure what I asked, and you said, yes, it is. Oh, yes, it is. I bet it's snowing. But yes, it is snowing. Okay. All right. Whoops, second here. I got the camera sitting on the tube here. Oh, I'm probably making you dizzy. Okay. Thank you for being very patient with me with this whole camera business, because this is something new to me. So I have never sewn with a camera between my legs before, so hopefully it's working okay and you can see. And you might hear a cat pretty soon. She's outside because she can hear me talking. All right. So then once I get down to my last clip, I usually leave the last one in. We'll go down to there. Like that. All right, I leave this one in, and then I clip another 10, and I just keep going. And once you get going a little ways, this tube gets kind of long, and I'm going to bring it over. You can see it sitting back here in the back. Okay, I bring it down to the left, and then I start coiling it in the bucket as I go, and it kind of coils down, and kind of naturally coils down. Actually, works great, and I just lay it down in the bucket as I go and keep it nice and deep, and then I can, when I get ready to sew, it works real well so that the tube's not all tied up in a knot. Okay, so this is the basic sewing. You can see that I have the open area here. I've got it about halfway. Can you see that I'm about halfway? Try to stay as close to the center that I can. If you're going to err a little bit to the right, which is the open side, but so you can see I've caught all the fabric. This is the inside, and I've caught all the fabric. But if you get them too close to the edge, when you go to zigzag, it is harder to zigzag it, I think, because you're sewing through the other stitching too, and I have trouble with skipping. So I try to keep it so it looks like there's 2 tubes on each coil, okay? You're going to go all the way down to the other end, and that, like I said, it's about 1,800 inches. When you get down to the other end, you have to do the same thing we did on this end, but we're not going to bevel it this time. You're just going to go off the end. So when I get down to the other end, I'll just use a piece of paper to show you. Pretend this is my tube. Okay, I'm going to cut my batting off about 1/2 inch from the edge, the end of the fabric. I'm going to flip the fabric over the raw edge of the batting, and then I'm going to bring this in, and this in, and sew off the edge, just like I would at the end. So it's just going to be, it's going to have the fabric over the batting. So you'll, at the very end, just cut your batting off about 1/2 inch from the edge. Flip your edge over first, so it's nice. There's no raw edge showing here, and then flip it over just like you've been doing for the whole rest of the rug. Okay, and then you're done. So then next week, what we'll do is we'll talk about how to do the coiling part, and that's actually really fun. It doesn't take as long as getting this tube done, but this is also very relaxing to me. Okay, so is everybody feeling okay about how to do this part? This part's pretty easy. It does take a while to do. Let me know next time, you know, how you're doing. Also put pictures of your coils up on the group so that we can see, like, if you want to take a picture of your bucket with all your coil in it, or if you've made it into a ball, do that. Okay, do you have any other questions about how to end it? So it's basically the same as up here, except we're not doing the bevel. This is just for the outside. The inside is just going to be straight, like the rest of the tube is. Does that make sense to everybody? I think you'll see that in the instructions as well. It's on page, I think it's on page 2 also, because the taper is on one end and the straight is on the other end. Now, when you get to the end of your first roll of batting, some of you got batting from me, and there's 2 rolls. Okay, another question. Oh, and there's 2 rolls, and what I do is that when I get to the end of one roll, I have, this is like batting, what do they call it? Batting, fusible batting tape. I get this at Joann's, and it's a real lightweight, soft little thing that I just iron the 2 ends together so that I can join the 2 rolls. You can also just zigzag it. If you bought batting from me, I just zigzag my my batting together with the sewing machine. It works fast for me. If anybody needs batting, let me know. I still have some batting left. I use Quilter's Dream Cotton, and it's the Request version, which is a real lightweight batting. It's a little easier to turn, I think. That Bossel pre-cut 2.5 inch batting is really good. It's a little heavier and it's a little harder to clip than this Dream Cotton is. Hobbs works really well too. So if you're cutting your own batting, you can cut Hobbs. If you're cutting your own and it's thicker, cut your strips 2.25 inches. It might be a little easier to fold it then. But I cut mine 2.5 because this is real lightweight batting. Okay. And then next time, so hopefully by next week you'll have your whole tube all done and all sewn, and I'll try to get mine done too. Then next week also have a few things. There's a couple things that you might want. If you have a Brother machine, here's a couple of the feet that I use when I do the coiling for the rug. I start out with an open toe foot, and you can either get a plastic one or a metal one, because it's hard to see sometimes where you're zigzagging. You can see through your J foot, but I like this open toe foot. It works really well. The other foot that works super well once you get past that very first couple of rounds is this, it's called an edge joining foot, and it's got a little thing in the center here, And all you have to do is put the two pieces of the coil together and just butt them right up against that little metal thing, and you don't even have to watch where you're going. It actually just is so simple. So I usually switch to this foot after I get past the first couple rounds, because they're so tight that that little metal thing's too long. So if you don't have those feet, I know we have them at the store, and those might be nice feet to have. The open toe feet work really great if you don't have this other one. Or you can just use a standard zigzag foot, whichever works better for you. So that's a couple things we might use next time. I'll talk about them again. But your little homework for the week then is to, here's one end, and I'm a lot closer to the first end than the second end right now. So hopefully we'll all be at the second end for next time, so we can start coiling the rug. We're going to start with the coiling with the other end, which is the flat end, the straight end, and this will be out on the outside of the rug, the bevel. So, and then we'll be using a zigzag next time. The other thing you're going to want to have for the actual rug is you're going to want to have starch and a steam iron. And you have to use starch. If you don't have starch, you're going to make a bowl instead of a rug. I use vodka and distilled water for starch. I make my own, and Judy makes it for me. And then I also you could use Best Press, you can use other starch, whichever works for you. I'm allergic to the Best Press, so I don't like it. But you'll definitely need that for next time when we start ready to coil the rug. And also make sure you have a couple of choices of needle and a couple of choices of thread, just in case you run into some zigzagging problems. So, okay. So I think that's your basics for the getting started on the rug here. Are there any questions? Was I able to show it to you well enough you could see what you need to do? It's pretty easy. Just keep the straight stitch kind of towards the middle of your strip instead of out on the outside edge. It works a lot better. Yep, just looking down. Has anybody else got any questions? Think you can go home and do this, or you're actually at home, right? Can you go to your machines and start working on your rugs? They're a lot of fun. And then also next week, be thinking of some other sew-alongs you'd like to do. I had someone ask me if we could do a tuffet, because I know some of you didn't get to make the tuffet, and I would actually like to make a square one too. So we could do a tuffet. That'd be another fun thing. So keep thinking about it, what you would like to make. All right. Doesn't look like there's any more questions. Everybody's very quiet out there tonight. Okay. So I'm going to put the camera up on me so I can say goodbye to everyone. Hopefully I'm not making you sick while I'm doing this. Okay. All right. So now we have going to have all these expert rug makers. And hopefully everybody will have their tubes done before next week. And we will start coiling the rugs. You also may need to know, you need to have a really flat surface when you're making your rug, because it is pretty big. So if you have like an extension table on your machine, or like I have my, I don't know if you saw my table. I have one of those unique tables. I'll turn it around again so you can see it. I have one of those unique tables that it's very flat right here, and then I have this big long surface over here to do the rug, and keeps it very flat. So that's very important to have a nice flat surface to be working on. Oh, looks like I might have some questions. A second here. Whoops, I just missed one. Denise, did you have a question? Oh, Denise Remke said, yes, the edge joining foot works really, really well. Yes, it does. I really like that. You don't have to think too much. Looks like Lisa wants to make a tuffet. Lisa Jorgensen, yeah. Thanks, Jan. This was helpful. And Connie says thanks. So is there any other questions? Otherwise, we're all going to be sewing tonight. I'm going to watch Victoria, and I'm going to sew on my rug while I'm watching it. So, okay. All righty. I'm going to sign off then, everybody. If you have questions, just write in the comments or email me or text me personally, and then I will help you. So we'll see you next week at the same time, and we will work on the coiling of the rug. Thanks, everyone. Good night.